So, I will tell you today our belief in Orange around this question, how to race for the on-demand networks. But first, maybe we should say, why racing? Why this word racing? And I think it echoes to what has been said previously in the morning. We cannot afford any longer to wait for industrialization. We need this industrialization because right now we are starting to invest a lot to make it at scale. It was okay, it was now happening, but we need to make it at scale because now we invest millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and so we must think about it before the ecosystem is crystallizing. And I'm talking about the ecosystem and not only the technology, as also was mentioned this morning by previous speakers, because it's a global call to action for our community, telcos and vendors. And for that purpose, I propose to share with you the first implementation feedbacks with quite openness and quite lucidity, because it's the way we will improve collectively. So, once again, it's nice to be the first mover, but now we must keep ahead. And so, we've launched in Orange and through our OBS structure some offers addressing the multinational companies with quite a success and with really flattering feedbacks. So this is the good news, but it's quite a simple environment. It's one segment and on obviously one market, which is the B2B. It's one offer, one configuration of the YAS, so more or less it's a simple configuration. But now we're entering the second phase with this industrialization, this scaling, and then we address two markets, B2B and wholesale, with different segments on the B2B, going down in the segments to the SMEs or even to the SOs. 7 countries, as you may know, as a whole, Orange has 28 countries footprint, and a need for some variations in the YAS to address and to be able to host a lot of VNFs, simple ones, complex ones, but then a huge variety that, of course, needs orchestration. And it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning because the promise is more and more services, of course, agile ones, and the advent of the 5G, of course, in a couple of years. So we have this window today, and I really want to share this question. Do we consider that we are at scale, or do we accept this kind of fake virtualization we have today? And I will quote a few numbers, a few figures, to illustrate what I call this fake virtualization. It's, for example, the fact that, and it was also previously said, for real, it's not agile integration, agile management of services, of new services. It's been 9 months, for example, in Spain for us to integrate one VNF on our infrastructure. We do not have also a resilient service as is promised. And for example, when the VNF is down, it's 4 to 12 hours to rebuild all the resources and come back to life. So we must acknowledge that we underestimate this move, this change. We underestimate the fact that it's a real industrial revolution. It has been also mentioned that it's not only technical, it's a change in the operating models, it's a change in the skills, and I will come back to that. So my recommendation is to stick to the promises, to stick to these 3 promises that are the revenue growth and the new services acceleration or accelerated go-to-market, the agility, of course, in the operations also, not only in the marketing, portfolio management, and the 5G, which is not the only purpose of the SDN NFV. And I would like also to emphasize this message, because a lot of us now focus on the 5G, but I think we have stakes before the 5G event right now. So focusing on this first promise, which is on the agility, which is the, let's say, big one, we have to acknowledge that maturity is low. Maturity is low, and we have to move collectively, once again, telcos plus vendors, maybe plus cloud providers, and go for real automation. Real automation means cloud-ready VNFs, means, of course, sharp move from this vendor industry, and needs also to manage hybrid networks. And I want also to emphasize this, because we will have in our networks, as CSPs, we will have for long hybrid networks, including the legacy one. And since we want to sell the on-demand promise to our customers, it means that we must automate end-to-end these services, not only thinking on the virtualized one. And that's why we bet on ONAP, because it's clearly the promise of this platform. The second point I want to emphasize, once again, to be consistent with the promises, it's that we must collectively manage the viability of this new model. And I'm not sure today that the ecosystem is sustainable as is. One thing to be added is that it's not true only for European or North American geographies. It should be true for any geography, including states or continents with low income. So we have this question of making this transformation affordable, which is also not really the case today. And it's considered as quite expensive technology by our affiliates in Orange. So what we pursue is really to reach in the ecosystem the kind of mechanism that we have with the well-known marketplace, and that allows or guarantees that the VNFs are certified. Are certified, meaning that we can bet they will integrate easily. This integration matter is handled upfront. And for that, we really believe that we need to have a kind of standards on the infrastructure. So we rather defend a de facto standard that could be pushed through OPNFV, for example, as an open source community. And when I say standardized, of course, it's also embedding the APIs that should be exposed. It's mostly the point. And in this infrastructure, we should manage by default or by design the security and the isolation question, because the promise is also for the CapEx, for the CapEx and investment standpoint, is also to be able to mutualize this infrastructure. So it means to be able to manage this isolation between tenants, for example, which is not also the case. And it should be true either in the centralized or distributed gas, but also in the universal CPEs, which is a huge promise also both for the B2B market and for the wholesale market. And thirdly, but it's also an important matter, and I think it has been also mentioned just previously, it's this question of the skills and the scarcity of the skills in our ecosystem. And so collectively, we also need to stimulate this education pipe. I think it's not only a fatality, it's something we can act on, and we should act on, not only thinking about our internal transformation, but thinking also about this education pipe that would provide us with the appropriate resources. And so we must act for obtaining the endorsement by our universities or engineering schools, so we are able to get these new talents. And once again, it's quite a demanding option here, because we are mixing the two worlds. We are mixing the network world and the IT world. And so, at the end of the day, it's quite a double challenge, okay? So, as a kind of key messages, I would like to insist a little bit on these 2 points at the end. We in Orange really defend the openness, and we consider it's not only a key enabler, it's kind of prerequisite. Because if not, we will not achieve the SDN and FE promise. And it's also now that we have this window, because we're in this phase of industrialization, and we should not wait, especially we should not bet on future technologies such as the containers without thinking first, industrializing what is deployed, what is currently in a relative state of maturity. And we consider also, once again, it's mandatory if we want to get a viable ecosystem, a viable and a dynamic ecosystem, because all of the CSPs want a huge portfolio of VNFs, a huge portfolio of services. I use once again this image of the marketplace, but services that are pre-certified or integrated by default, and that is rich proposal of the ecosystem. And the second item I want to insist on is also the time frame. The time frame, and we consider that it's more or less now or never. Maybe it's a bit extreme, but it's a call to action right now. Because as Axel said previously, we've been struggling with this till 2012, and now we are at the age of the 5G, and then we need an acceleration. We need an acceleration, and what we recommend, what we propose is really to leverage the key open source initiatives. So I've mentioned ONAP, I mentioned OP and FV, and really we believe in that, and we are involved deeply in these two communities with strong contributions. And also act to set up this limited number of YAS standards for also these VNF developers to be to support to be supported, excuse me, and so to be viable. And so here we need this. We need to agree on this type of profiles, and it could be either through organizations such as GSMA, where we launched an initiative regarding that, or through open source communities, once again, and I would quote as a vehicle OP and FV. And so there's a kind of urge, because if not, we will be overtaken by easy-to-go solutions. So either we will be really stuck in the vertical model, which is what I call fake virtualization, or either we will be overpassed by cloud providers, for example, as was described also previously. So there's a rich and huge stake for us in our core business as telcos. So to conclude, and I think it's been clear in my message, Orange really does not want only to make it happen. Okay, it's what we can consider as done. We have some offers, we have some infrastructure deployed, we have some moves to the new operating models. But now, and with lucidity and with alignment among our community, which is not an easy task, of course, we have to make it at scale. And it will be possible only if we act collectively, if we act together, because there is, for example, this question of standardization. And from my standpoint, from the Orange standpoint, it's really now that it's the good time frame and is needed. Thank you very much.